Hello, hello, hello. I don't know why I have a notebook. Probably because I was taking copious notes on what I was going to say today about Joe Biden, but I don't actually need a notebook to talk about Joe Biden. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Woke Wednesday. How is everyone today? You know the drill. So let me know by dropping an emoji into the comment section about how you are feeling today. On today's episode of Woke Wednesday, what are we talking about? Oh, the Biden administration's report card and what score we're going to be giving them. So first, folks, let me know how you're feeling. I am in a not great mood. Hello, Becca. I have been busy all day, but turned on the news and I need to vent for a moment before we actually talk about the Biden administration's report card. But let me vent and say this. I cannot fucking stand this Senate. I can't fucking stand Congress. I can't fucking stand government. Like, you know, a million moons ago, I went into politics, I got my degree, moved from Long Island down to Washington, D.C., so excited, you know, filled with so much youthful ambition about being a part of making America better, being one of those people who was going to dedicate their lives, right, to creating more equity, to creating more justice, to lobbying on behalf of causes and that mattered, right? Like connecting kids with nature, making sure that the environment wasn't something that just rich white people get to connect with, right? Making our public schools stronger and not penalizing teachers for the fact that some students are failing. Well, as a matter of fact, there are kids that are failing before they even get into the classroom, and it's because we as a society and our government doesn't actually care to create social safety nets that hold those children, right? So you have kids that are coming to school hungry. You got kids that are coming to school with, 3,000 less words than their white counterparts, but then we're going to penalize teachers. There is so much that is wrong right now. And, it isn't just the fact that I fucking hate Kirsten Sinema and her stupid fucking vest and Joe Manchin and his stupid fucking white man smug face that I want to kick in. It's not even those things, right? It's the fact that what Democrats are showing these days is just how fucking inept they actually are, right? And I say this as a Democrat, right? I say this as a staunch member of the base that they know, clearly that where else is a queer black woman in America going to go? You think the Republicans are going to open their arms to me? And I'm certainly not going to be an independent where I'm not able to vote in actual primaries. And we don't have a viable third party, right? So if you are a person that believes in equity, that believes in justice, that believes in progress, right? And that creating from this place of abundance means that everyone gets a seat at the table and you don't feel like that's taking away from you, well, there really is no party for you to go to. Because you see, you have the people that will say fuck you to your face, right? Which is what Republicans do on a daily basis. But then you have these motherfuckers who are in your own party who want to say fuck you, but do it behind closed doors, which is exactly what Sinema and Manchin were doing today, right? We're doing yesterday when leader Chuck Schumer, right, who's been my fucking senator for my entire goddamn life, which just shows you why we need term limits in places, right? Just, for instance, I don't believe that we should be living in a world anymore, particularly with modern medicine, where people are on their jobs for the rest of their fucking lives. That's just number one. Like, you shouldn't be in a job for 40, 50 fucking years. Like, that's me, right? And the feeling that you are still somehow connected to your state, to your constituency, and have not just become another cog in the wheel of capitalism, I don't think that is something that you can actually believe in if you've been staying in one job for 40 some odd years. I mean, look at Joe Biden right now. Joe Biden had the assumption that because he's a white man and because he had been, along with these other white men for 36 years, that's how long Joe Biden was in the Senate, 36 years, right? That there was going to be some talk of bipartisanism, that he was going to be able, unlike Barack Obama, right, who he served as vice president under, that they weren't going to come for him in the same way that they went for the black guy. This was the assumption that Joe Biden went into this administration with. And it's almost as if, were you paying attention for the last 4 years? Did you pay attention to the fact that Republicans are no longer your friends, that these are not people that you go to have scotch with after a long days of debating on the floor to absolutely move the needle nowhere, right? That these people are not in it the same way that you are in terms of their dedication to this country, to patriotism, because they have, along with alternative facts and along with their lack of desire to connect to science or truth or reality, that they no longer have the same shared values that we do as a nation, right? That everyone is deserving, or at least, that's what's inscribed, right? In all of these, wonderful places of marble and statue, right? That these wonderful creeds of America, that we all used to believe that people had this shared value. You see, this is how a country operates. This is how society operates, is that you have real laws that are on the books, and then you have actual, implied laws, which is that we all believe in science. We all believe in truth. We're operating from the same set of facts. But 5 years ago, Republicans and Trumpism completely flipped the script on that. So then if the script has been flipped, right, and then you witnessed over the last 5 years this party degrade itself and debase itself for their orange god, then why would you believe that when you walked through the doors, right, after they called for the hanging of their own vice president, but a week and a half before you were to take the oath, why would you think that these people would be willing to work with you? That's the assumption of whiteness, right? And that is what I call Joe Biden out on as I'm prepared to provide a report card for this first year. I've been told over and over again to give this administration time, right? That they needed time, that they were coming in and they were literally, it was like drinking from a fire hose, right? That they needed to get their bearings. Well, here's the thing. None of us have had our bearings since 2016. All of us have been operating from a place of panic, anxiety, depression, instability, unknowing, right? And somehow we are all expected to go into our jobs day in and day fucking out and produce for the man, whoever that man happens to be, right? We're all supposed to just keep on going in the midst of this global health pandemic that has more hospitalizations this year than it has, since the beginning of the fucking pandemic, right? So here's the thing with my rant before I go into Joe Biden's report card is that for those people, unlike myself, who didn't dedicate their lives to justice, who didn't dedicate their lives to strengthening government and social safety nets and making the country safer and better and not just tolerant, but accepting, right? Rejoicing and celebrating of people's differences. Imagine how those people, those fence sitters, are feeling right now about the Democratic Party. Just think for a minute. You don't even have to really think. Probably ask your cousins, your mom, your dad. I can tell you that within my own family of staunch Democrats, right, that my mother has about fucking had it, right? My mother, who is always like, Danielle, we got to give people time and, you got to breathe and all of these things. And she's like, I'm fucking done. I don't know if I want to vote anymore. This is a woman who came to this country from Jamaica, right? Became a U.S. citizen. It was the pride that she had that day, right? When that happened, for her to be consistently engaged every single day, watching the news, doing the most, to then turn around to me after this past 2020, 2021, and say, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to vote anymore. That should signal to everybody, right? To everybody. That, we're not in a good fucking place. And you see, it's very easy for Republicans to continue to operate in this mode of destruction because they're not trying to win anybody's votes. You can just turn on the news for about 5 minutes and understand that they are just working to steal it. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are providing the getaway car. Right? Because you see, no one is talking about Republican obstruction of voting rights. Nobody is talking about their allegiance to the big lie in the press right now. What they're talking about is just how fucking inadequate in leading Democrats actually are. They keep referring to it as infighting, but you have to understand, there is not Democratic infighting right now. There are two fucking thorns in the sides of our democracy, and it is Sinema and it is Manchin. Progressives aren't infighting. Progressives, in fact, the ones that are consistently blamed for trying to get more for the American people, those people that are blamed, right, for saying, you know what? Everyone should have clean drinking water. Do you know what America needs? A Green New Deal. Do you know that our public schools should actually try to be educating kids and not just resuscitating the same white supremacist bullshit so that we never make it out of this racist mess that this country was founded on? They're the only ones. But you see, because they are made up of people of color and of women, they're easy targets. And it's also easy for this Democratic Party, this party of fucking moderates, right, which is a fucking joke, right? There is no such thing as moderation in a country that is spinning out of control. We do get that, right? Like, there is nothing moderate about what's happening. It is as if we are in the midst of Don't Look Up, right? And the comet is coming and you're just like, right? Where it's like, I'm not going to vote to change the rules until there is Republican support. Well, here's the idea. If I were Chuck Schumer, one, these motherfuckers would not have committee seats. Let's just be clear. I would have Liz Cheney'd them in the same way that the fucking Republicans did to her, right? For not going along with the big lie. I would strip them of their committee assignments. I would strip them of leadership. I would strip them of the ability to caucus. Now, before folks in the comment section are just like, Danielle, then we lose the majority. Tell me how that's working out for us right now. At least you would make an example of these motherfuckers and let the rest of the big tent know that if you act out of line in this here day, you ain't one of us. You know what? Let's pull a Mean Girls. You can't sit with us, right? Because that's exactly the kind of message that Democrats don't put out. They all want their kumbaya bullshit. They all want their, we're in it for the people and we're going to keep fighting. If I hear one more fucking Democrat from the president to the vice president talk about we're going to keep fighting, fighting where? Fighting out of your jail cell, right? Because soon as Republicans are back holding the gavel, guess who's going to get impeached, right? Guess who's going to lose? Right? Not only their democracy, but all of their wonderful trimmings, right, that they get as these politicians, right, as these members of Congress. You're all going to be asked out because Republicans are going to come for you, and they're not going to come for you on some pansy ass shit in the way that we're going for them right now. It's not going to be, oh, well, let's put together a commission. No, they're just going to lock your ass up, which is what Donald Trump has been screaming from the mountaintop since 2016. Except those people, actually, you will be on the chopping block. And they probably will bring back those insurrectionists, award them all with Congressional Medals of Freedom, and set up the guillotine to actually execute Joe Biden on the Capitol steps. You think that I'm joking. I am not. These people are fucking nuts. They believe that Jewish people are in control of lasers in space. Right? Like, that's the future of the Republican Party. That is the now of the Republican Party. But do you know who Democrats walk away from? Their passionate, young coalition of color. Yeah, they love to distance themselves from those people so that they can continue chasing Karen and Brad around the playground, begging for them to play with them, begging for them to vote with them, knowing good goddamn well that hasn't happened since the 1950s, which is where we're going back to. Join me on this fucking road trip that we're headed to in the time capsule that Republicans have put in place for us. So, folks, that's my opening rant. So let's go to the grading system, shall we? So for me, and you tell me in the comment section, for me, there are a couple of things. There are a couple of areas that I actually want to focus on for the Biden administration's report card, right? And the first being the vaccine rollout, right? So let's focus on the vaccine rollout. So if we're looking at an actual report card, and actually I have no idea what the fuck report cards look like. If it is like new math, then I have no idea if your kid is an idiot or not. You probably don't know either. But let's function on the 20th century idea of report cards, ones that were clear, where you got A's and B's and D's and C's. So go with me there. Let's look at the vaccine. So when the Trump administration left office, we had 400,000 people that died, right? So Donald Trump, as I like to say on Woke AF Daily, is responsible for the deaths of over 400,000 Americans. And why do I say that? Because he's criminally negligent and should be prosecuted as such. In the fact that he was holding on to pertinent information, created an entire lie by calling the COVID-19 pandemic a hoax, right? Telling people to drink bleach, when in fact he knew just how dangerous it was, and that is documented back to December 2019. I digress. But he wants to take full credit now for the vaccine. Don't understand how. When Biden and Harris came into office, they gave, if you remember, beautiful symbolism, right? We had all of the lights along the National Mall, recognizing all of the people that had perished. We had moments of silence. And then we said that we have a new vaccine and we're going to be rolling it out in stages. We're going to get these shots in arms. Right now, 2 years into this pandemic, how many Americans are fully vaccinated? 62.9. 62.9% of Americans are fully vaccinated. That is the lowest vaccination rate behind Russia, right? Every other developed nation has a higher, way higher, like in the 80s, higher. So 20 percentage points higher than the United States. Now, folks will say, well, it's not Biden's administration's fault that they couldn't get more shots in arms, but yeah, it kind of is. Because one, their vaccination rollout was a hot fucking mess, if you actually remember. There were certain communities that weren't getting the vaccine at all. Largely low income, largely those that were considered essential workers, but now according to my new mayor in New York City are just, those Dunkin' and Donuts low education workers, right? The people that you can just easily dismiss nowadays. They did not do the one thing that was going to be necessary in order to get more shots in arms. And what would that be? That would have been to stop the Trump lie machine dead in its tracks. That would have been to make your communications plan and rollout just as important as the actual vaccine. It would have meant putting in resources to go from state to state and town to town, utilizing, right, Democrats at all levels of power, right, into this huge mobilization communications campaign to let the American people know that the last guy, he wasn't just an asshole, but he actually lied to you. He's actually a fucking murderer. And remember when this same party, back when Obama was trying to give you all fucking free healthcare, when they said that they were going to march you in front of death camps? Well, they actually did that, right? They're actually doing that right now. The state of Florida, fucking Texas, Kentucky, as I was coming on the air. Kentucky's hospitals have damn near collapsed, right? But they got Mitch McConnell, who has been in the Senate for 116 years with his duckbill platypus face, right? And you have a fucking governor, right? Who doesn't care? These are the same people who didn't want vaccine mandates, who have done nothing to protect the people in their states, right? So Democrats, having sat back and watched Republicans destroy and disseminate this misinformation campaign, why would your first plan not have been to, I don't know, reach out to everyone, whether it is the TikTokers, the Googlers, the fucking Facebooks, every single social media person that has huge rollout, huge name, and put together from the grass tops, those celebrities, those trusted voices, all the way down to your fucking principal at your school, to your fucking janitor, right? Roll out a messaging campaign. But you see, no. Because what do Democrats rely on, and what do they always believe? That the American public is better than they are. They're not, right? They actually will fall for the rope-a-dope because they don't have the time or the understanding or, frankly, the education to really give a fuck, right? They were trying to deal with, the $400 bill that will come up that they won't be able to pay for, the medication that they need to volley between that or food on the table, right? So here's the thing, is that if you were paying attention for the last 4 years under Donald Trump, then you would be very well aware that his messaging, even though it was completely fucking bogus, was on fucking point. Because he was on Twitter every single day. He was on Fox News every fucking waking moment. And so were all of his acolytes. So I ask you, dear fucking Democrats, why did you not learn from the Republican Party over the last 4 years? Why were you not putting together a plan? Where the fuck was the DNC, the DCCC, the DSCC, every single fucking group? Right? So you want to pat yourselves on the back for the vaccine rollout, and I say it was fucking paltry. So for my first mark for the Biden administration as it pertains to COVID and the vaccine rollout, you get a D+. Because right now we are fucking barreling towards 1 million deaths in this country. We have reached a peak that was higher than when the pandemic started, and we have vaccines. Which means to me that you did not put your money where your fucking mouth is, and you did not put your mouth where it needed to be, which was on every fucking cable news network, which is on every local station, which is on every podcaster place. You didn't have a communications plan, which is why, if you're watching the news right now, one of the lower thirds says, White House is changing their messaging strategy. Yeah, no shit. So you get a D+ for the vaccine. Moving on. We have experienced over the past year some of the most historic fucking storms. Historic floodings, historic fires, historic tornadoes, historic hurricanes that are costing this country billions of fucking dollars, right? When the entirety of the infrastructure bill was put together, that means when it included not only the actual building infrastructure, like your bridges, your tunnels, your buses, those things that are really tactile and touchable, right? Tangible. It also included the Build Back Better. But as a part of the building side of the infrastructure bill, there were whole bunches of things that were in there that were about climate change, right? And combating the fact that, guess what? We're not going to have the money to be able to pay for another round of historic storms, fires, tornadoes, hurricanes coming this fucking year. So if you don't want to make it a moral issue to deal with the climate change disaster that is human-made, then maybe you want to make it an economic one. But once again, guess who was able to gut the climate change legislation from the bill? You guessed it, Joe fucking Manchin. King Cole, right? Not to be confused with the wonderful singer, but King Cole, right? Decided that he didn't want that climate language in there because, you know, the desire to actually breathe fresh air and to put the burden on polluters, right? Like the coal industry, which is where he gets all of his millions so that he can, you know, be on his $700,000 yacht and riding around in his fucking Maserati in the poorest fucking state in the nation. He decided to take that out. And it's because his son, who pays his wife, his mother, $690,000 a year as part of his energy business, it would take a really big hit. So Joe Manchin decided that, you know, that didn't actually matter. It doesn't matter that what's happening with the rest of the country or the rest of the world for that matter. It just matters that he can continue making millions of dollars. And guess what? Mainstream media didn't call him out on that either. Yeah. Way to go, President Manchin. So for the Biden administration's understanding that once again, they allowed this massive bill to be broken up into two, and now the other one can't get passed, which is what progressives had told them was going to happen in the first fucking place, because Joe Manchin is a liar when he says that he's going to negotiate in good faith. You know what that means. It ain't going nowhere. So now, not only do we have a infrastructure bill that was bipartisan and passed, but it's about as, you know, helpful to combating the climate crisis that we are in as, you know, I don't know, Mike Pence was to Donald Trump in being able to move forward with a coup. So in terms of the Biden administration's dealing with climate change, our other crisis, you get an F. Okay, so far, if you're keeping score at home, we get a D plus for the vaccine rollout, so you're passing, and we get an F for climate change. Okay, next up on my agenda, voting rights. Voting rights, which is in the news right now, which this administration decided not to pick up until a week ago. They didn't talk about it in all of 2021 when they had the opportunity to do it and not be forced up against the deadline of midterm elections, which you're going to lose in about 9 months. You have Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema once again deciding that, guess what? They'd rather hold on to racist institutional rules that they don't mind lifting up as long as it is about the debt ceiling as opposed to saving our democracy. And this administration decided that they were going to bury their heads in the fucking sand about it and not do anything. So there is that. And so for voting rights, they also get a fucking F. Okay? So where are we, folks? We have no police reform that failed after 8 months of bullshit, non-faith negotiations with Republicans. You got climate change, you got voting rights, you got a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is the only thing that Democrats can use, right? You lost the governorship in Virginia because, again, you couldn't point to anything that the Biden administration had actually done. And instead of running a new candidate, you decided to dust off Terry McAuliffe, who, right, no one even knows. No one even cares. But Terry McAuliffe thought that he was going to be able to walk back into Virginia. So if Virginia is foreshadowing, if this loss with voting rights is foreshadowing, folks, what does that F stand for that is running down the Biden administration's report card? Fucked. The F stands for fucked. The country is actually fucked. It is going to take an act of fucking God for us not to lose the midterm elections. And frankly, if I'm thinking like my mom, I'm like, why the fuck should I vote anyway? Because it doesn't really matter. Where I'm actually interested in putting my energy is to holding up the walls around New York where I currently am, because once the Gestapo comes out, the blue cities are gonna be next. Folks, that is it for me today on this Woke Wednesday. Head over to my page and tell me in the comment section over there what grade you are giving the Biden administration. This video is going to go up immediately, so share it with your friends. And if you want to hear more of me each and every day, then sign up for Woke AF Daily at patreon.com/WokeAF. I am back every Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. See you then. Power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke and stay woke as fuck. Pray about it, y'all. We in for it. That's all I'm gonna say. Pray. See you next week.